Shri Krishna Parabrahmane Namaha. Now I would like to discuss on the topic eternity of Vedas. Let us go in detail after the prayer. Dadhara Vedan Sarvamsha Tubhyam Brahmatmane Namaha Sarvan Samharate Yastu Samhare Vishwadruk Sada. Vedas comprise of words, phrases and verses. Just as a sculpture is not formed without someone making it, in same manner Vedas must also have been made by someone. They did not exist before creation and shall not exist after dissolution. Hence, Vedas cannot be eternal. 1. Words are of two types, eternal and effect. Words in knowledge of Ishvara are eternal because they represent relation with specific perfect knowledge of Ishvara, are eternal because they represent relation with specific perfect knowledge. However, the words created by us are effects of various factors, including our existing knowledge, tendencies, and mindsets, and hence non-eternal. The knowledge of Ishvara is eternal in lines of eternal powers of Ishvara. Thus, Vedas are eternal. Number 2. Let us understand it in a different manner. By words, we imply the relation with specific knowledge. For example, when someone calls or writes your name, that pronunciation or handwriting is not eternal. But the fact that it implies relation with you is unchangeable. If one has to represent you in sound, calling your name would be the best possible way. But pronunciation of name is not you. However, you remain unchanged. Similarly, the words printed in Vedas or their pronunciation are not eternal. However, the knowledge that they represent is eternal. 3. Alternatively, Vedas represent eternal knowledge. The best representation of Vedas in sound is the mantras we chant, and best representation of Vedas in vision is the print of mantras. This is just like best representation of you on a plain paper is your photo. Because we are ignorant, we are unable to grasp the full meaning of Vedas from what we listen or see. But in Ishvara's perfection, which is devoid of such ignorance, Vedas represent eternal knowledge. Number 3. Over. Number 4. As we progress in our efforts to free ourselves from ignorance, Vedas become clearer and clearer to us. That's why it is fruitless to simply mug up Vedic mantras. What is actually mugged up is non-eternal. Only when those mantras become representation of knowledge, they imply that we actually understand the eternal Vedas. 5th one. This eternity is what differentiates Vedas from other books like Quran, Bible, etc. Because Vedas represent eternal knowledge that can be progressively grasped to utmost capacity of soul only when progressively freed from ignorance. Blind belief in book called Vedas or sounds of mantras without understanding them is fruitless. Because when we do so, we are trying to master the non eternal. Unless and until that relationship with eternal knowledge exists, mugging up Vedas or worshipping cover of Vedas or believing that Vedas worship will lead us to heaven, even though we do not understand it, is sheer stupidity. Thus, number 6. Thus, this concept of eternity forms the foundation of principle of tolerance imbibed in Vedas. There is no concept of compulsion or blind belief like in Islam or Christianity. Vedas are not supposed to represent beginning points of blind belief for ignorant souls. On contrary, Vedas represents the ultimate benchmarks of knowledge that can be fully understood when fully devoid of ignorance. So, one is expected to simply follow path of truth, do thorough introspection, extend one's capabilities, and then embrace Vedas in a more organic manner rather than through brute force blind faith. Here a question arises. When the universe dissolves completely, even the books of Vedas get destroyed, and even study of Vedas stops, why are then Vedas eternal? Beautiful question. Answer. It should be much more beautiful than this question. 1. As discussed earlier, Vedas do not represent books, paper, ink, etc. They represent relation between Shabda and knowledge, Shabdartha. In other words, they are the best or the most perfect representation of eternal knowledge in sound or words. When the universe dissolves, even then the eternal knowledge remains the same in Ishwar. It is in hidden form because there is no creation to manifest it in sounds or words. But just as a sampling remains hidden in seed, Vedas still remain and germinate when creation happens again and opportunity arises to represent this eternal knowledge in sounds, words. 2. Rigveda 10.190.3 states that Ishwar creates the universe exactly in the same manner as it created previously. Thus, in all creations, the same sounds or words perfectly represent the eternal knowledge of Vedas. Hence, the same Vedas as we see or hear today represent the eternal knowledge always without a small amount of change. 3. And hence, in each creation, Ishvara institutes the method of preserving Vedas in same manner through Patha Vidhis and mantra markups as earlier. Thus, Vedas remain as protected even in mundane world as always. Now, another question arises. As per text of grammar, union of certain alphabets lead to change, and removal of alphabets as sandhi. Thus, words would be different when separated and when united. How can then words be eternal? Question. 1. As discussed above, such rules of grammar are only effects. They are not cause the knowledge. Even when words change as per rules of grammar, the knowledge they represent remains eternal. Hence, Vedas remain eternal. 2. As per others' texts, Shabda or words mean the meaning that is embraced when we hear from ears, see from eyes, speak from mouth, and understand from intellect. Thus, Shabda is not eternal. Only physical process of grasping or propagating Shabda is. Number 3. If you and me say the same word, both produce different sound patterns, but the meaning is unchanged. Hence, Vedas, the knowledge of Ishwar is eternal regardless of way we speak or combine words as per grammar. Another question. Even Shabda get destroyed after pronunciation, and they do not exist before pronunciation. How can then Shabda be eternal? Question is good. Answer. Number 1. This is a problem. Yes. You are misrepresenting the meaning of Shabdas as per your own conceptions. As discussed earlier, Shabda represents relationship with knowledge. This relationship is eternal and unchanged. Pronunciation is an effect and hence not eternal. But regardless of pronunciation happening or not, the relation of a particular pronunciation with the meaning it represents is eternal. Number 2. In fact, all Shabdas are eternal, as propounded by scholars of grammar like Panini and Vyasa. And hence, those Shabdas that represents eternal knowledge to maximize our bliss. Maximize our bliss. The Vedas are also eternal. All the darshans, Mimamsa by Jaimini, Vaiseshika by Kanada, Nyaya by Gautama, Yoga by Patanjali, Sankhya by Kapila, and Vedanta by Vyasa consider Shabda to be eternal. Adi Shankaracharya also states the same in his commentary on Vedanta. 2. Hence, the eternally provides us with his true eternal knowledge of Vedas. Further, something cannot happen from nothing, and existence cannot spring up from non-existence. Hence, if Vedas are available today, they have to be eternal always. If Ishwar has always been the same, he shall always bless us with his eternal knowledge. We see that experience gives rise to samskars, samskars give rise to memory, and we use this memory to decide what to accept and what to reject. One who studies Sanskrit creates samskaras in his mind, and one who studies Latin creates samskara of Latin in his mind. Thus, if Ishvara did not give guidance of Vedas in inception of civilization, no human could have experienced knowledge, and without experience, even samskaras of knowledge would not have been possible. Without samskar, even memory would have failed, and hence growth of knowledge would not have been possible. Thus, unless Ishwar kickstarts this process at inception of civilization, this process of pursuit of knowledge would not have started at all. just as it did not start in other species of animal world. Okay. Now another question. But even by normal actions, humans feel pain and pleasure, and they could have used that to gradually enhance knowledge and then create Vedas. Why then use we need to believe that Ishwar created Vedas? Answer. We have already discussed this doubt in article on origin of Vedas. We deduced that no species or even tribes in jungles or an isolated child can enhance knowledge beyond most primitive level, barely sufficient for survival, unless provided knowledge externally. For example, chimpanzees do not feel the need to introspect on death and life even when they see so many of them dying. If humans think so much on this, it has to have origin or through external training. Unless Ishwar guides us at beginning of civilization, we would remain animals. Another question. Eternal Ishwar and his eternal knowledge. What is it? Answer. Eternal entities have eternal traits, and non-eternal entities have non-eternal traits. Because the entity is identified by its traits only. Destruction is nothing but disaggregation of elements that create something to be no more perceived by our senses. And creation is a combination of elements to form something that can be perceived by senses. Thus, only those objects are created or destroyed in which aggregation and disaggregation is feasible. Since Ishvara is omnipresent, without gaps, it is impossible for Ishvara to disaggregate. So, Ishvara is eternal, and so is his knowledge. Vaiseshika 4.1 states that only that is non-eternal which is effect of some other cause. For example, the part was effect of clay coming together. So clay is also non-eternal, but fundamental entity that forms the atoms is eternal. In same way, Ishvara is also eternal, as he is not effect of any other cause, and hence his knowledge, the Vedas, is also eternal. The cosmic dance of Lord Shiva is significant from the point of view of the Sanskrit language. The Lord holds in one of his hands a damaru. This is a small drum shaped like an hourglass. When the Lord passed in the middle of his dance, he shook his damaru. It is said that he shook it 14 times. Each time he shook the damaru, a shabda was produced. The Sanakadi rishis who watched his dance absorbed the shabdas, the 14 sutras, Chaturdasa Maheshwara Sutrani. Panini, the great grammarian, wrote his Ashtadhyayi based on these sutras, which owed their original to shabdas emanating from Lord Shiva's damaru. Thus, Lord Shiva is the origin of Sanskrit grammar. Every word has a meaningful root in Sanskrit, and the same word can have different meanings in different contexts. While we know Anna as referring to cooked rice, in fact, it can be used to refer simply to food and not necessarily only to rice. Sanskrit is a language of the Vedas. The Vedas were taught orally, a student learning from a teacher who in turn would have learned from an earlier one, and so on. In this respect, they are very much like the Supreme One himself. The Vedas lay down what constitutes righteous conduct. The Vedas also talk about what happens in various yugas. Thus, the Vedas are not just records of past knowledge, but they also talk of the future. They are the repositories of all kinds of knowledge. None can claim to have complete mastery over the Vedas. This is seen in the life of sage Bharadwaja, who could not master the Vedas despite his life being extended up to 300 years. Majority of the Hindu and non-Hindu scholars of Vedas accept Vedas to be of a finite date. Only a minority of Hindus, especially the Arya Samaj, claim that the Vedas are eternal and beginningless. This they try to explain only by mere conjecture and some philosophical gymnastics. As far as the tangible evidence is concerned, there is no reason to believe in this myth of Vedas being eternal. We will analyze this topic from many angles and that build a coherent view that Vedas are of finite date. When the finite age of the Vedas is established, it will bring to rest many false theories and questions that are built on this supposition of that Vedas are eternal. The methodology. If the Vedic language Sanskrit has itself originated from another language, or both originated from a common language, then Vedas will be disproved to be eternal. 2. If Vedas never claim to be eternal and from the beginning, but internal evidence shows that Vedas were written at a finite date, then also this claim of Vedas being eternal will collapse. 3. Those who uphold this view of eternity of Vedas also claim that Vedic teachings are for all times. Thus, if it can be shown that Vedic teachings are obsolete or time bound, the claim of eternity of Vedas will fall apart. 4th, if many teachings and concepts within the Vedas are similar to those of Zoroastrian religion, why should we not conclude the Vedic religion has been derived from Zoroastrian? Because the Parsis consider the religion older than the Vedic religion. Now, the linguistic evidence. Now we can see this topic, besides showing that the present Vedas are not eternal, will also throw some light on the much debated topic of Aryan invasion of India. It is worth nothing that many foreign nations came to India. Thus, the farther we look back in history, we come across to know that this nation has always been overrun by foreign powers. However, the opposite wave, for example, inhabitants of this area going and overrunning foreign lands, is not established. Thus, if we establish that Sanskrit and Persian languages have a lot in common, it will follow that Sanskrit have origins in the Persian language and religion as it were the Persians who came here and not vice versa. It will also allow us to establish that what we know as Hinduism is not the indigenous religion of India, and hence the extremist Hindus have no ground to question the presence of Islam in this country. Those things which are related to humans in such a way that we use them almost daily and we take their names in our daily life are very similar in Sanskrit and Persian. This is significant evidence that Aryans came from Iran into India and settled here. Thus, Vedas which are written in Sanskrit and related to the Aryan people can in no way to be eternal. To prove this from the linguistic perspective, we can find a comprehensive list of similar words in Persian as well as in Sanskrit. Internal evidence. Let us take a look at some Vedic mantras which falsify the claim that Vedas are beginningless. This shows that Vedas were written at a time when many generations of humans had passed from the first humans, and there were people who believed and disbelieved in the Vedas, the latter being compared to evil dogs. Thus, Vedas were written at a finite time. In this way, Rigveda mentions numerous gods. When it mentions Agni, we feel that Agni is a supreme deity and no other is equal to Agni. But when we read about Indra, we feel Indra is a supreme and no one is comparable to Indra. In total, there are 33 gods that are divided into 3 categories. How? 11 of the heavens, 11 of earth, 11 of water. Later, these 33 gods increase the number and become 330 million. Notice that the mantra calls Soma is imperishable, and Arya Samaj and other scholars say that it has perished. So either they must accept that this Vedic mantra has been proven false, or accept the Vedas are promoting crime, because the only option left for them is that Soma is wine or bhang, both intoxicating substances. The Vedas do not ascertain a systematic account of Dharma. They indicate the ideals and mention creation, certain practices, rules and commands as distinct from instances of conduct are found in Smritis and Dharmashastras, which are practically synonymous. Smritis literally refer to what is remembered by the sages, who are well versed in the learning of the Vedas. Any rule in a Smriti for which a Vedic source can be found becomes invested with the authority of the Veda. श्रेयकांताय कल्याण निधे निधेन्द्राम श्री वेंकटनिवासाय श्रीनिवासाय मंगलम मंगलाशासनपरैर्मदाचार्य पुरोगमैः सर्वैश्च पूर्वैराचार्यैः सत्कृतायास्तु मंगलम्.